Hello everyone, my name is Amelia. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm currently reading The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. So the plan for today is I need to set up my May reading journal, and then I also want to talk a little bit about my TBR for May. So we're going to go ahead and get started with setting up my reading journal. So for May, I decided that I wanted to do a cherry blossom theme, and I know cherry blossoms for spring is super original for sure. But you know what? I like them, and I like how representative they are of spring. Like, they only stick around for such a short period of time, and that's really how spring feels. And where I live, that it's so short. We go from it's cold, okay, for spring number 1, winter 2, spring 2, and then it's summer already. So I like how they represent that fleeting moment of spring. And actually here, when I was painting this 2 weeks ago, it should be now, we had actually a early kind of summer. We had this heat wave for 3 or 4 days. It was 26 to 27 degrees or so, which is at least 10 degrees above average in this area around this time. For example, now a week after that is 10 degrees again. So that's just Ontario weather for you. It is very temperamental. She does what she wants, and she doesn't take no for an answer. But my original plan for this was actually to do a close-up painting of individual cherry blossom flowers. But then when I googled cherry blossoms, I saw this image of a mountain with a row of cherry trees in bloom in front of it, and I decided that that was the image. I liked the image a lot, so I decided that I was going to try to emulate that for my reading journal this month. And I also decided to try something new for me, which was to paint my images. Usually I just use markers and stuff, as you've seen, but I didn't think that I would be able to represent what I wanted well with the markers, just the way the colors blend and stuff with markers, especially on bullet journal paper and not on actual marker paper. I don't find they blend very well, and even on, if I had done it on marker paper, I just don't really know how to blend markers to a satisfying degree. And to be honest, I also don't really know how to blend paints. I don't know how to paint. I know I did some lessons in painting when I was a kid, but since then, I mean, I've painted a couple of times, but pretty much only just one image here or there, just simple stuff. I'm not a painter, so for this I was kind of just figuring things out as I went along. I'm using just some cheap acrylics, so the paint is not super even in all places. I did my best to kind of even it out, but the paper I'm using is it's not really for this, so I didn't want to go too crazy with the amount of paint and cause it to buckle too much. But I think I managed to get it to turn out pretty well in the end. I was able to achieve the sky gradient way better than I thought I was going to. I did it just I used a lot of water in the paint so that I could have the most pigment at the top, and then introduce more water going down the page. And that was a really effective technique to get a good watercolor, although I think I went slightly too pale too fast, because as you can see, the white peak of the mountain does kind of disappear into the sky a little bit, but oh well. And then for the cherry blossoms, I just took a brush really dry and dipped it in some pink paint, and then dotted it just onto the page. And then I kind of did it again with a slightly darker shade of pink, just to get a little bit of variation in the color on there. And then what I'm doing now is making my monthly bookmark. So I always keep track of the number of pages that I read each day that I read, and I usually do this by, well, originally I did it just by writing it down in my bullet journal, but I would never write it down every day. So it ended up being that I would just add a bookmark to my book for each day that I read. So I'd end up with having 5 or 6 bookmarks delineating the number of pages that I had read in a day. But the problem with this was that
there was no way to know like the date, actual date, because I didn't necessarily read every day. So like I might have 5 bookmarks, but that might represent 5 days that aren't like right after each other, and I wanted to know the exact dates. So I came up with my bookmark system, and for that I make a bookmark for each month. And recently I've been trying to make it match my reading journal theme. So for this one, I'm doing like a branch with some cherry blossoms, more close up like I was originally thinking. But then, throughout the month, I forgot to finish explaining how my bookmark works. But throughout the month, I will use that bookmark, and then on the other side, as you'll see later, I'll have like a pages tracker so that I can write down the day, the title of the book that I was reading, and the number of pages that I read. So that's what this little drawing is for. It's going to be the bookmark. So I did a really similar thing with the background, did just like a blue gradient, and now I am trying to paint cherry blossom flowers. They don't end up being very like detailed or anything. They're very kind of minimal, abstract kind of vibes. But the way that I did them was just using 2 different shades of pink again, just to get a little bit of variation in there and make it not too, I don't know, I just like feel like it feels more like lively when there's a little bit of variation in the color, because in nature, like, you might have 2 flowers that are technically like the same like species of flower, but they're pretty much never like exactly the same color. So that's what I was trying to do by mixing up the color a little bit. And these ones, they were kind of hard for me to figure out like the best way to do it. Originally, I was like looking at cherry blossoms, like, oh, they're kind of like lighter in the center, so I was trying to use like a lot of water again to create kind of like a bit of like a gradient from like the outside of the petal to the inside. But I think just because it was like on such a small scale, and these are obviously not watercolor paints, it like wasn't working out the way I wanted it to. Like the water was, I don't know, like spreading on the page too much. It definitely wasn't quite working out. So then I was going with just like with no water, and that was like it was more opaque than I wanted. So I managed to find kind of like a middle ground where I would use like some water and try to start at the outside and like bring the paint in towards the center of the petal. But that is the end of the painting session, and now I am just going to bring the painting into my bullet journal and set up the rest of the spread. So the painting takes up most of the spread. I don't know why I thought it was going to be smaller on the page, but whatever. I like that it takes up a lot of room. So for the font and stuff, I'm just using my set of alphabet stamps, and these you can get in a lot of places. They're kind of one of those like drop shipped items that like everybody seems to sell. I think I got this set on Amazon, but you can also get them from a bunch of different stationery shops. So just if you're looking for them, I think you can just search like alphabet stamp set, and they'll probably come up with just like the ones in the wooden box. But they work pretty well. I don't really have any complaints with them, so if you're looking for alphabet stamps, these are a pretty good and cheap alternative. So as you can see, I'm now working on my pages read tracker, and it's going to be pretty much the same as it is most months. I've got myself a little header where I'm going to put pages read in a little bit, and then I've got my 3 columns for putting the date, the title of the book, and then my little bar graph kind of thing that I like to do. I find like just drawing the bar, like you can't obviously tell the exact number of pages, so I usually like draw the bar, and then after it I write like in pencil, so it's a little bit more faint. I write the exact number of pages that I read. So that's how I use this. I'll probably try to show you a like completed one at some point, probably in one of my reading vlogs. But that's all for the the reading journal. And as you just saw there, I was just showing you a filled in version of the bookmark. That was March's one. So on the bookmark on the front, I just simply added the month title, and then flipping over to the back, which is going to be my pages tracker. It's quite simple. I mean, there's obviously not too much space on here to get fancy, so I'm really just giving a title and then adding like the little, I guess you would call it chart, where I can write down the date and title and pages. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it.
So for May, I have 6 books on my TBR. which is more than I usually add to my TBR, but I had a really good reading month in April, so I'm feeling confident in my ability to read all these books, even though some of them are kind of long, so we'll see how I get on. But anyway, the first book that I have on my TBR is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. So this is the final book in the Broken Earth trilogy. I just finished the last one actually like a couple of days ago, and it was really good, so I'm excited for the final book to see what happens, how things wrap up, and just what it has in store for me. So I can't wait to read that one. The second book on my TBR is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is apparently set in 18th century Cairo and follows a con woman who accidentally summons a djinn and then is forced to acknowledge like a world of magic that as a child she was told about in stories, but she always thought were just stories. So I was always really like interested in ancient Egypt and Egyptian mythology like when I was a kid. So I'm really interested to see how this story uses those elements and creates something fun and unique. Next up we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So this book is about a circus which one day just kind of appears and, as the title might suggest, is only open at night. And we follow a pair of young magicians who are part of the circus who are in fierce competition with each other. However, the stakes are higher than either of them know. This book sounds like it's going to be really like kind of like mysterious and captivating, so I'm excited to get into it. Somebody has just started mowing their lawn or sawing or something, so I apologize if you can hear some background noise, but unfortunately it's probably just going to be that way. Anyway, the next book that I have on my TBR is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and I know this is a BookTube favorite. I've heard about it a lot on BookTube, so I'm interested to give it a try for myself. I know that it's kind of a more like grim, dark fantasy series, which I haven't tried before, so I'm excited to see if it's something that I like. But I think this one is supposed to be following 4 kind of main people as they all sort of go about trying to get what they want. I know that's like really vague. That's kind of what all books are about, is somebody trying to get what they want, but I don't really know that much about like the actual plot of this book, and I'm kind of interested to go into it sort of knowing that like a lot of people like it, but like not knowing what it's about. So yeah. Next up we have a book that I actually have with me. I have The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, and this one is set in the world of Austin Ard, which I have only read what's out so far of The Last King of Austin Ard, as well as the Brothers of the Wind sort of shorter story, so I'm excited to read more in that world. And this one is set before Last King of Austin Ard. I believe the like High King is dying and they're about to go to war with the Norns. And I usually find Tad Williams' writing to be very complex and intriguing, so I'm really excited to get into this one. It is kind of a thickie. Oh, it's not too bad. 650-ish pages, so, but the type is small, so yeah, as I was saying, this is kind of one of the big ones that I'm adding to my plate this month. And then the final book on my TBR for this month is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And this was another one that's really popular on BookTube, although it seems to have kind of mixed reviews, like people either love it or they hate it. So I'm excited to read it and form my own opinion. But I think it's kind of like a political fantasy court intrigue kind of thing, which I do like, so I'm interested to see kind of how deep and interesting that is. And then it's also really praised for like its LGBTQ plus representation, which fantasy is definitely lacking in a lot of ways, so it's nice to see some representation, and I'm excited to get to read some more characters who fit into that spectrum. But yeah, that is all I have on my TBR for this month. I'm not the most like TBR strict reader. Sometimes I just pick up books that strike my fancy, or I pick up books because they happen to come in from the library this month, so. But I am really interested in reading all of the books that are on my TBR this month, so we will see if I manage to complete it. But that is all that I have for you today, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.